This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman as we continue with the allegations against Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh, as a second woman has come forward accusing him of sexual misconduct. Deborah Ramirez accusing Kavanaugh of exposing himself and thrusting his penis in her face during a college party in a Yale dorm room while they were both students at Yale. Ramirez speaking on the record to the New Yorker magazine in a piece that was just revealed last night, a piece by Jane Mayer and Ronan Farrow. Ramirez is now calling on the FBI to investigate her accusations. This comes as Dr. Christine Blasey Ford has agreed to testify before the Senate Judiciary Committee on Thursday, 10 a.m. Eastern Time, about her allegations that Kavanaugh attempted to rape her when she was 15 and he 17 years old. More than 1,100 alumni of the Holton-Arms school, the Maryland prep school that Blasey Ford graduated from in 1984, have signed a letter in support of her sexual assault claims against President Trump's Supreme Court nominee, Judge Brett Kavanaugh, saying they're grateful that she came forward to tell her story. In the letter, they write, "It demands a thorough and independent investigation before the Senate can reasonably vote on Brett Kavanaugh's nomination to a lifetime seat on the nation's highest court. Dr. Blasey Ford's experience is all too consistent with stories we heard and lived while attending Holton. Many of us are survivors ourselves," they write. They delivered the letter last week to Republican Senator Shelley Moore Capito of West Virginia, who also graduated from Holton-Arms School. For more, we're joined in Washington, D.C. by Alexis Goldstein, one of the Holton-Arms alum who helped to organize this letter campaign to support Christine Blasey Ford. Welcome to Democracy Now! It's great to have you with us, Alexis. I know that you're racing off to the Supreme Court. Tell us about this letter that you spearheaded.
So I was a group of 6 women who attended Holton-Arms, the class of 2005. 5 of them wrote the text of the letter very quickly. I was very impressed with them. And we, as the Holton-Arms community, a large number of us really wanted to say that we stood with Dr. Christine Blasey Ford and that we recognize her bravery in coming forward. This is coming at great personal cost to her. As folks have seen reported, she's been forced to move out of her home. She's facing death threats. And I think those of us in the Holton-Arms community who signed this letter really just wanted to say, Dr. Blasey Ford, we have your back, and we stand with you, and we believe you, and we know how incredibly difficult this is, and you are so brave, and we are here for you.
And explain what you're referring to in this letter when you talk about Holton-Arms and the atmosphere at the time. Again, Judge Kavanaugh attended Georgetown Prep, which was a male prep school nearby.
So I think this, what Dr. Blasey Ford describes resonates a lot with the Holton-Arms community, but it's not just about the Holton-Arms community. I think pretty much any woman in America, this probably resonates with them, with any person in America. Whether you're a survivor yourself, you probably know one, whether you know it or not. Sexual assault knows no political party. It's not just something that happens at prep schools. It happens everywhere. But just like, anywhere else or any other school, members of the Holton-Arms community, some of us, unfortunately, are familiar with this. And so we know how difficult it is to come forward. We know how much bravery it took her. And so we really just wanted to stand with her to say, don't mess with her, and that we have her back.
Now, Alexis, there was another letter that was just her graduating class, Christine Blasey's graduating class of 1984.
That's right. The class of 1984 did their own separate letter. I believe there were 24 signers the last time I checked, but there might have been more since then. We linked to their letter on the website for our letter, which is standwithblaseyford.com. They did it independently, but we just asked permission to link to their letter.
How did you deliver the letter to Congressmember Capito, who also went to your school? She's also an alum of Holton-Arms.
So we wanted to make sure that every alumna knew about this letter, that we wanted to give everyone an opportunity to sign. Julia Louis-Dreyfus is another alumna of Holton-Arms who we invited to sign. She did sign. Christine Lagarde is an alumna of Holton-Arms. We continue to invite her to sign. And Senator Capito is an alumna of Holton-Arms. And we just wanted to make absolutely sure that she saw the letter and had an invitation to sign it. So we went to her office last Thursday and hand-delivered a letter to the front desk. Senator Capito was not in maintained the office at the time, but we just encouraged her staff to pass it along. And if she or her staff would like to meet with us in the future to just hear our invitation personally, we would be happy to do that. But we just wanted to make absolutely sure that Senator Capito knew about the existence of the letter and invite her, like we invite every Holton-Arms alumna, to consider signing. Sorry,
Senator Capito, that's right. And has Senator Capito, what did she do with the letter? And has she responded to you all since? You are sister alum, after all.
I don't know what the senator has done with the letter, but we've been in communication briefly with her staff. So at least one member of her staff knows, and the front desk, that they're aware of the letter, but we have not spoken to the senator.
And why are you heading right away to the Supreme Court? Explain what's happening today in the United States.
I mean, I think this is a moment to say that this is not 1991 and that survivors must be heard and they must be believed. And I just want to be there on the steps of the Supreme Court today personally to show my support for Dr. Blasey Ford and say that we have her back, to say that we have the back of all survivors. I think that this is an opportunity to do one better than what happened with the Anita Hill hearings in 1991, although, as was unfortunately mentioned earlier in your previous segment, there has not been an FBI investigation. That is one of the things that our letter calls for, is for there to be an FBI investigation. The Holton-Arms alumni community wanted to echo Dr. Blasey Ford's call for an investigation, and I think, you know, that is something that the Senate should do. So I just personally wanted to be there on the steps of the Supreme Court this morning to continue to stand with Dr. Blasey Ford and echo her call for an investigation.
And Alexis, your response to Senator Dianne Feinstein now calling for a hold on the confirmation proceedings of Judge Kavanaugh, with the second person coming forward. Now, Michael Avenatti, the lawyer for Stormy Daniels, is alleging that there may be a third woman who will be coming forward.
I mean, in our letter, we've always called for a thorough and independent investigation, and now, just as before, is as good of a time as any to do it. It seems right to me personally that we should slow down. There is no rush here. Let's do an investigation, and let's air all of these stories, and let's let all of these survivors be heard and be believed.
A lot is being talked about the atmosphere of these schools. We know about Mark Judge, who Dr. Christine Ford wanted to testify. She alleges he was the third person in the room at the time that she says that Kavanaugh attempted to rape her, and it was only when Judge jumped on top of the two of them and they tumbled to the floor that she was able to escape from underneath Kavanaugh. As she said, he was holding her mouth, trying to prevent her from screaming, Kavanaugh was, and she was able to escape. But this book that he wrote about his high school years, about Georgetown Prep, that's called Wasted: Tales of a Gen X Drunk. The atmosphere they're describing, and then what we hear Deborah Ramirez in the latest New Yorker piece allege what happened to her not so long after, when Kavanaugh was 18 at Yale. Talk more about that.
I mean, I don't think any of this is unique to any one individual school. I don't think it's certainly not unique to Holton-Arms. I mean, I can't really speak to Yale. I was not a student at Yale. But I think, unfortunately, sexual assault happens everywhere, and it's an issue that is deeply personal for a lot of folks. It's an issue that deserves serious consideration and to be taken seriously. And when survivors come forward, they're doing so at immense personal cost. And as we saw last week with the hashtag Why I Didn't Come Forward, I believe it was, there's a lot of reasons that women and other survivors don't come forward. And so I don't think that this is a problem that is specific to any one institution. I mean, underage drinking happens everywhere, all across the country. Excessive drinking happens everywhere, all across the country. And unfortunately, sexual assault happens everywhere. So I think this is a problem that we as a country need to think about and contend with. But again, the most important thing and the focus, I believe, of the Holton-Arms community letter was just, Dr. Blasey Ford, we're here for you, we stand with you, we believe you, you need to be heard, and there needs to be a thorough and independent investigation.
Alexis, 1,100 women signed this letter. Talk about this number. What are the class sizes at Holton-Arms?
So Holton-Arms is a very small school. I would say the class size is about 80 to 100, and the farther you go back in time, the smaller those class sizes are. So 1,100 women on a letter is a very, very large chunk of our community. So this is not a small portion of our community. This is a very significant chunk. So it shows you just how large of a presence within the Holton-Arms community there is standing with Dr. Blasey Ford and saying we support you.
Alexis, I want to thank you for being with us. Who are the other people who will be in front of the Supreme Court today as you head off?
I believe there's a whole slew of different organizations, to be honest with you, Amy. I just saw this on Twitter, so I just wanted to be there in person with them and show my support. But it's multiple groups. I'm not sure of the name of all of them, but I believe.
Finally, Alexis, this is the 7th anniversary of Occupy, and you were very involved with Occupy Wall Street and really involved with giving economic analysis to the economic meltdown that took place in this country. I was wondering how you compare the Occupy movement to what we're seeing today, the whole Me Too movement around this country, and especially that is expressing support like your school has. And by the way, has the management of the school expressed support for Dr. Ford? But if you could compare the two.
Well, I will say briefly that the head of the Holton-Arms School, Susanna Jones, did issue a statement saying that they were proud of Dr. Blasey Ford for coming forward. And then I was a part of Occupy, someone who worked on Wall Street. I had firsthand knowledge of what it was like to work on Wall Street. I worked on Wall Street for 7 years at Morgan Stanley, Merrill Lynch, and Deutsche Bank. And in some ways, I would guess that is the parallel that I would draw. The Me Too movement is about women and survivors with personal experience with sexual assault and telling their own stories and speaking their truth about what happened to them. And I suppose that, at least for me personally, is the main parallel. Is it's about folks with personal experience coming forward and saying, here is my truth. But I would say the other parallel, I suppose, is just people standing up and speaking their beliefs and trying to say, this is how we want to build a better world, whether it is a better world that has more economic fairness or a world without sexual assault.
Alexis Goldstein, thanks so much. Holton-Arms School alum, who is one of the women who spearheaded a letter now signed by 1,100 Holton-Arms School alum that went to West Virginia Senator Capito, who also is a Holton-Arms School alum.